This is called To the Sky and Back and Forth Again. Today, for the first time in as long as I can remember, I was disappointed by the sky. For years, it has been my primary source of inspiration, my favorite thing to write about. But when I looked up this morning and searched it for ideas, my mind fell blank. Normally, I'd be really happy to go off on some whole thing about the colors of the light or the poetry of the slow-moving clouds. And then I'd push through that and get on my kick about how the daytime sky is really just a blindfold, pleasantly diverting us from the enormous, uncomfortable implications of what is visible at night, the true scale of our reality, the incomprehensible distances involved. I have this bit I like to do about how we're all on this rock that's spinning around at like 1,000 miles an hour while it whips around this giant flaming ball of gas at roughly 60,000 miles per hour, and how that whole dance is taking place in a galaxy that's hurtling through space at over 1,000,000 miles per hour towards who knows where or what, and for no discernible reason. I get all excited about how the universe is expanding, but nobody knows what it might be expanding into, or how many universes there might be, or what time even really is. I usually get off on talking about how the sun will eventually extinguish, how all the galaxies will eventually disappear over the cosmic horizon where not even light is fast enough to chase them. I love how thinking about these things affects my perspective on other things. And when I'm feeling really ambitious, really theoretically awake, I like to muse about what lies beyond space. What is the ultimate context of our predicament? What would a word like God or infinity even mean? And then, what's beyond the context? Is there a conceptual space that somehow houses the physical space? And can we access that just by thinking about it? Is all existence only happening in my mind where I'm perceiving it? And are the limits to the answers about the cosmos really just the limits of my own imagination, running into dark, uncharted parts of its own domain? In a certain mood, this line of thinking feels liberating, empowering. It gives me ways to get around the day-to-day mundanity without feeling like I'm trying to escape. It feels more like I'm pointing at the thing that everyone else is trying to escape. The thing that almost every activity on Earth is trying to distract us from. The truest and most universal question that humanity faces. And there's an easy nobility in that. I can say some shit like that and then feel proud of myself without really doing much work. The only problem is sometimes it comes too easily. I arrive too quickly at this epic, unanswerable question into which no further progress feels possible, and it's a bit like arriving at the foot of a famous monument or geographical feature. Like, the second you see it, there's basically nothing left to do but get back in the car. So if the journey itself doesn't have enough meat on the bone, then you wind up feeling cheated. I can hear the voices of some of my Paris friends teasing me. There goes Jason doing his routine about the cosmos again. It becomes a lazy shortcut, regardless of its pure-hearted intentions. If you bark up the same tree too many times in a row, it becomes a shtick. And today, as I gazed into the overcast, hoping that it would provide me with a facile, creative spark, I felt in my gut that it wasn't sufficient. I could tell something was going on inside me that I wasn't really dealing with. So I sat myself down and tried to do the uncomfortable part of a writer's work. I asked myself, what was really the truest thing that I could say? Not just factually the truest, but the deep, vulnerable, sincere thing that if I just said it would open a channel of mutual recognition between me and somebody else. What was I feeling? What was I avoiding? What was I afraid to say? I guess there's a handful of things still bothering me that I've stopped writing about because I've already written about them so much that I'm afraid I'm just repeating myself rather than breaking new ground. Like the ongoing grief over the deaths of my parents, or the heartbreak I went through last year over the end of a relationship. I still feel lonely and sad and weighed upon by those things, but I've begun to doubt whether any good can come from continuing to go on about them. And it's hard sometimes to distinguish between resurgences of old sorrows and just the general background hum of commonplace depression and isolation. Then, of course, there's all the everyday little indignities that are always piling up but feel too obvious or just plain self-indulgent to go into, like the fact that I'm getting a little older and starting to worry about things like my belly and my teeth and my white hair and how long I have before my mind starts to go, and whether I'm going to die of something totally treatable because I don't have health insurance. Like, oh, poor me! I've just discovered the mundane details of mortality! Behold my completely pedestrian crumbling vanity! As a wise woman once said, ain't nobody got time for that. I suppose I could always go into my creative insecurities, like the ever-haunting question of whether my lack of material success is really because I've forsaken it in pursuit of loftier goals, or if it's maybe because I'm just a lousy writer with an overinflated view of himself. Then under that, I'd find the question about whether writing at all is just some ego-serving masturbatory bullshit and not the noble public service that I want to think it is. But if I go down that road, I'm going to find myself on stage somewhere telling an audience that I'm no good and poetry is no good and that they're all wasting their evening, so please forget I mentioned any of that. Still, behind there somewhere is a little annoying voice that pesters me from the undertow of my thoughts, asking why I even do it, why I push myself to keep writing. Is it still just to repay my debt to the writers who comforted me in my difficult youth? Is it a lingering need for attention and validation owing to some unaddressed emotional immaturity? Is it a hidden desire to do something great someday as an ultimate revenge against my childhood bullies? Or is it simply what I've been doing for so long now that I don't know how to do anything else and I don't have any other way to process? Sometimes I follow this train of thought until it rolls straight into a wall where honesty and self-pity are swirled together in a splat and can't be disentangled anymore. And it's like arriving at the frontier of inner space and having the same problem I had at the far reaches of outer space. I get to where I've said every embarrassing, difficult thing that I can think of, but the confessions have come too easily, without carrying the transformative power that they did when they were still fresh. Then I get so absolutely sick of myself that I don't want to say anything at all. And that'll go on for a while, sometimes months. until I encounter some great work of art or a moment of transcendent, sublime feeling, and I am reminded that the real poetry of life does not move us back and forth on a straight line between polarities of thought. It erases the line, obliterates the poles, frees us from the exact type of trap that my mind keeps building. Then I realize in a flash that I'm not disappointed by the sky. I'm disappointed by my own eyes and their failure to see their way through the habits I've adopted and formalized that are no longer serving me. I don't want to be drawing methodical straight lines, not to the edges of astrophysics or the core of my psychology or to anywhere else. I want to be building the fluid, serpentine staircases and multi-dimensional bridges with which to navigate the grand, impossible tapestry where everything is happening at once and nothing is happening at all. Where there is no objective reality and yet somehow we're all pushing and pulling at the edges of one. If I'm going to write, then I want to transport people, damn it. Beyond the limits of common sense, beyond all the linear binary shelves of our perception. Tear through the sky and the self and everything in between, opening spaces where the spirit can pour and spill and dance to its own organic music. I don't want to just be one more voice saying that I'm hurt or scared or that the government is fucked, or even that we all feel hopelessly imprisoned in a horrific system of violent exploitation in which our leaders have made us complicit. And now that I think of it, maybe that's exactly what's pressing up from beneath the surface that I've been subconsciously trying to subdue. I've been trying not to talk about the war. So many of the artists, poets, musicians who have reached deeply into me and helped to heal me have done so by refusing to explicitly acknowledge the atrocities of their time, refusing to give them page space or power, and instead fashioning artifacts of a parallel history, documenting their explorations of the psychedelic, the sexual, the abstract, the philosophical, leaving behind a legacy of curiosity and creativity to compete with the one of endless murder and greed. And I believe in the theoretical importance of this approach. I truly do. But over the last couple of days that I've been writing this, the bombing has been spreading into multiple countries where I know people who are also trying to stretch their minds into the far reaches of some poetic notion, except that they additionally have to worry about dying today. And it's in the face of this that all my efforts and artistic theories feel insufferably inadequate. Despite my self-doubt and self-deprecation, I know deep down that I didn't come to Australia only to run away, to hide, to have fun. I came in the humble hope that if I could just get far enough from my context, I might be able to open myself more deeply. That if I ventured into the air, the ocean, the desert of a distant land, I might receive and return with a vision. In my heart, I want to build the spaceship that carries my frightened inner child up and over the evil of the world out into the wild conceptual frontier that might free him to blossom into someone who could help, someone who could build more ships for your inner child or those being murdered, or even those doing the murdering. But what kind of stupid shit is that to say to someone who has a gun in her face tonight? It's easy to wonder if poetry is worthless. But then I look up at the sky again, and there it is. The scale at which nothing is worth killing each other over. It's right fucking there. And I'm just trying to figure out how to say to the bullied child, to the corporate overlord, to the young artist, to the man who's holding the gun. Look. Thank you. Thank you very much.